Okay, back. Problems. I have them. You just saw this. You have them. He has them. She has them. We all have them. And none of us like them, do we? I mean, I have them when I go to school with tests, exams, homework, procrastination with that homework. None of us like them. They're annoying. But then you have to admit, there are bigger problems out in the world. A lot bigger problems out in the world. But my question today is, are those problems we have really as bad as the ones we have in the past? Well, let's look in the past to find out. And I like to start big. 80,000 years ago. What do you think life was like? Well, I for one know that there were no cave boys and cave girls going to cave school, learning how to run away from bears. Because, I mean, really, there was no jobs, no money, no school, no university. What would you do? Use your degree in English to talk your way out of a bear's mouth? Seriously, everyone lived as one happy giant tribe. It was like a really big family. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Except you forgot about all the diseases, the bugs biting your ankles, your bare feet hurting after a long day's walk for nothing, and the bear sleeping in your cave, or the cannibal neighbor next door. Remember, this was a lawless land, a ruthless land, a primitive land. Anything could eat anything. Could you imagine having to live like that? I couldn't. But maybe things get better. 500 years ago. What was life like then? Well, most people lived as simple farmers or peasants. It was wake up in the morning, farm potatoes, eat potatoes, sleep. Wake up in the morning, farm potatoes, eat potatoes, sleep. There were no mammoths to hunt. They were gone, and we moved away from the bears. Boring, right? But maybe you could be a knight, a warrior clad in iron armor, loved by all, a hero. Except that you were confined to a piece of metal for 18 hours a day, every day. And not to mention, you had to do your business in that iron armor. But what about monarchs, kings, queens, dukes? They surely would be interesting, right? Well, yeah, a bit too interesting. They were all at war with each other. They hate each other. They wanted to kill each other. That's not a nice world to live in. I mean, you know those times you feel like you have no control over your life? Imagine these people. They had to face danger from these wars, diseases like the Black Death, or starvation from the potatoes being diseased. In fact, it sort of reminds me of like the TV show. I just have no idea which one though. Can anyone help me out? Anyone? No? Convenient, yes. Now, I'm not saying that life was anything like how it is in the show. No, not at all. I mean, come on. Ice zombies? Dragons? We don't have those. The dragons would be pretty cool. Except when they breathe fire. Then they would be pretty hot. But, okay, you get what I mean. They all rode horses. If they want to talk to each other, they would use pigeons or ravens, which would give a whole new meaning to tweeting your message. Twitter was the first social media account, technically. So, did things get better? 100 years ago, this was a time of change, a lot of change. It was the Industrial Revolution. And if you've ever gone through a big change, you know they're unpredictable. I mean, now electricity was more widespread than ever. People could use fax machines, telephones. The world was more connected. Sounds great, right? Except that, they cut down trees to make room for factories, which produced smoke, which caused global warming and gave people health problems. Not to mention World War I, which I don't really need to go in depth to tell you how bad it was. So, yeah. And eventually, that brings us to the world of today. Now is life really good? I mean, we all use our phones, we have cars to travel, and if we want to go somewhere far, we use planes. Sounds good, right? Except we all know those people who claim to have world-ending problems, who go, oh my God, I couldn't charge my phone last night and now I can't use Instagram. My life is like ruined. I hate those type of people. Where was I? But then there are the times you look in the newspaper and you read the headlines and then it just gives you this overwhelming feeling of sadness. Like, these scientists discovered this new world-ending disease. a new gruesome murder. These two nations are troubled with each other. The world is on the brink of nuclear collapse. When was the last time you looked at a newspaper and felt happy? You read something that gave you joy and purpose? I don't remember. Can any of you? So, for many people in the world, it wouldn't be a stretch at all to claim that the world today is the worst it's ever been. But today, I think I can tell you that the opposite could also be said, that the world is better than you think it is. Now, I'm definitely not saying that the world is the best it's ever been. I can't say that for sure. I don't know. But what I am saying is that people make a bigger deal out of problems today that affected us more in the past. In fact, these past 80,000 years have only accounted for 1% of human existence. The other 99, we lived as hunters and gatherers. So then, what caused this 1% to change so fast? Well, in one article I read, it talked about how humanity suppressed 3 of the world's biggest problems in these 80,000 years: famine, war, and plague. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about those new terrorists, the famine in all these countries, Ebola, AIDS? Yes, they're all happening, and it's all sad the effect that they're causing on people. But it's important to remember that these things affected us a lot more in the past. And to show you why, I think we should go in depth on each of them. Let's start with famine. Now, of course, we all know what famine is. It's when there are too many mouths to feed, but not enough to go around. It's affected every corner of the world, and it has plagued, and it has hit us so many times. It can kill massive amounts of civilizations, and really, those times when it does exist, it's terrible. I mean, in the 20th century alone, famine killed 70 million people. That's nearly the amount of people killed by World War II. That's a lot of people dead from no food. In fact, it was killing 975,000 people yearly from 1870 to 1970. But in the past 50 years, it's only been killing 75,000 people, which is still a big number, but 10% of what it was last century. I don't know, but that's a pretty big improvement. These past 50 years, we've worked hard to create a stable food network where we can supply most of the world's food, where we can supply most of the world's population with food. In fact, only 2% of the world's population is needed to work in food production if we want to supply the other 98 with complete food. Our problem is not with production. Our problem is with supplying the entire world. No longer are we helpless in the face of bad weather or a disease in the crops. No. Our problem is with ourselves. In fact, even plague no longer affects us like how it did before. People in the past would have seen them as the wrath of God, or maybe even a curse from the witch in the mountains. The Black Death alone was responsible for claiming 75 million to 200 million lives. That was 1/3 of the population of Europe at the time. That's a lot of people dead, a lot of corpses on the street, a lot of people who need help. But nowadays we have diseases like Ebola or AIDS. In fact, Ebola lasted from 2014 to 2016, over a period of 18 months. It claimed the lives of 11,000, but infected 30,000. If you compare that to something like the Black Death, that's not a lot of people. Yet everywhere you would go, you would hear screams telling people to shut down international air travel, don't go to Africa, it's all dangerous. When really, we've dealt with a lot worse problems in the past. In fact, we are able to eradicate diseases now. Before, no one could have dreamed of ever doing that. Smallpox no longer affects us at all. And if efforts are kept on high, we could get rid of measles and polio. Finally, that brings us to the big guns, literally, war. Now, I'm not saying that humanity likes violence, but we sure do like our fair share of movies with giant explosions and half of the world getting eradicated. In fact, I'm not gonna lie, I watched John Wick here 3 weeks ago. Yeah, moving on. If you were to look at times of peace in the past, really, they were really seen as interludes between wars. I mean, everyone was thinking, what should we do until the next war? How should we prepare? Should we stockpile food, armor, weapons? No one was counting that peace to last. But if you look at us now, nowadays, we're all looking for that peace. We're all hoping that peace still exists. Honda and Ford aren't wondering what will happen if the US and Japan go to war with each other. No, they would never. Why would they? Because we've worked hard to create a stable global community. The last major world conflict was in 1945, after World War II. Ever since then, there has never been a large global scale war, and even crime and violence has reduced. In the past few centuries, it's fallen by 20 times. But the amount of people who believe that crime is increasing continues to grow. If you look everywhere, everywhere people believe that the world's getting more dangerous. So why? Why does it feel like everything is worse than it actually is? Well, there are 4 main reasons for this. The first one being that, remember when I said that 99% of human existence was spent as hunters and gatherers? Well, it's literally in our genes to be fearful of this. It's like a bad habit that we can't get rid of. It is in our DNA. If you didn't suspect that an alligator was hiding in every lake, you would have died. That was the fact back then. But now we don't need to suspect that. Now we can go and swim in those lakes or whatever. But the second reason is that humans like to gossip. It's simple as that. We all like to figure out what's going on. We all want that juicy steak. So what juice is there to get from a happy marriage when you can go and see a bad divorce or a breakup? We all like to bite into those steaks, no matter how artificial they are. Okay, and finally, well, after knowing these 2 points, it makes sense that the media would want to capitalize on it. So they give us this negative information, and we get a negative outlook of the world. So with that negative outlook, it becomes a cycle. We reject all the positive news and accept more negative news. So what do we do then? Well, actually, 4th point, these problems, whether you like it or not, actually end up giving our lives meaning. Just hear me out. No one goes out in the world knowing that they're going to face famine, war, and plague every single day, having to fight it. No one in our society, in this society specifically, lives like that. But we create these imaginative problems because we all want to live another day knowing that we can fight, knowing that we're struggling, when really we're just giving ourselves something that doesn't even exist. Imagine just for a second that you lived a life where everything was perfect, where you lived in harmony. There were no problems to solve. Life just was the best and it couldn't get better. It feels almost a bit lifeless, empty, without purpose. Because the truth is, our challenges are our purpose. Humans live to solve these challenges. They live to be better. So then, what now? What do we do with this feeling of emptiness? Well, the first thing I want you to do is that I'm not going to say that you should muster up the energy and go and help the world become an even better place. No. But I'm not saying that this is definitely not the time to, relax and know that the world is going in a better place. So no need to do anything. No. Now is the time that you, as a person, have to realize that you were lost before then. You just didn't know it. When a person thought that famine, plague, and war were their biggest enemies, they were still lost then. They just didn't know it. But now, we do. And life, it's all about rediscovery, finding out your purpose, finding out who you are and what you can do. And there are always going to be problems in the world. Famine, plague, and war were just the beginning. I mean, take famine, for example. We solved it, but now more people are dying from obesity than violence. Gunpowder is less dangerous than sugar. Think about that. And take our constant pessimism, for example. Today, I seek to help in that. Suicidal thoughts, they plague everyone from time to time. And people take their lives. In fact, more people are taking their lives than people who've actually seen battlefields. And There are so many problems you can solve, from the economy to medical prices going so high that people don't want to burden their family. There's a lot of problems in the world that people often don't focus about. Also, this is definitely not the time where I'm saying that you shouldn't begin to donate because now you know those places are better than anything. No, now is the time where you definitely should, because those places are only going to get better and those places are going to contribute themselves to society. If you, every time you help a child in Africa to grow up and become someone better, they themselves, they can become doctors, engineers, scientists. They will contribute to society. They will make their own research. They will do their own research and they will spread their findings because they don't want anyone else to go through what they felt. When you stop famine in one country, you're creating a new trading partner that can help in global economy. When you're stopping an epidemic in one country, you're stopping an epidemic from spreading to all countries. When you stabilize one country, you're making sure that there isn't a growing threat in the world. Think about that for a second. So, I'm not going to tell you guys to spread the news that a 15-year-old told you that the world is full of sunshine and rainbows. No. But what I am saying is that it's okay to be hopeful for the future. After all, don't we want to live in a future where we're happy? My name is Hamza, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk.